blindness, or other forms of eye condition to those who may be partially or profoundly deaf. Some countries, like England, have moved away from singling out disabled and now create guidance that covers all in society. Each country mentioned in the slide has appropriate guidance for members to refer to. In some cases, they may need to refer to more than one document, in particular guidance for stairs. In preparing for this webinar, I have had the opportunity to slightly review these documents, and it is clear that in principle they're kind of the same, but there are some differences in how and what each country would consider appropriate. They say a picture paints 1,000 words. With the guidance within the United States of America, it actually shows some of the best diagrammatical presentations of aspects relating to disability regulations. So is there a difference in the legislation? Well, if we were to look at the United States of America, their requirements ensure that all buildings built or altered are suitable for those with a disability. The same can be said for legislation in Hong Kong. But it is interesting to see that in Hong Kong it includes the phrase "and other sectors of the population, including the elderly." When we look at Northern Ireland, it makes reference to the phrase "regardless of ability, age or gender." And that both buildings and the use of their facilities should be accessible for customers, visitors and people who work in them. When we refer to Scotland, they make reference to occupants and visitors. They go on to say, ensuring that they provided with safe, convenient and unassisted means of access to the building. Referring to the Republic of Ireland, theirs is very similar to England and Wales, where their breakdown of the legislative requirements into sections. And on this slide you can see how, again in England and Wales, they've broken theirs down into various sections. Mindful of the fact that we have members from different countries taking part in this webinar, I've decided to offer a talk covering the principles of consideration when dealing with accessibility in commercial buildings. During my research, I found that the Northern Ireland Technical Booklet R, in particular sections 2 to 6, to be very helpful due to the way in which it introduces various provisions for buildings other than dwellings, which in my mind I found to be clear and methodical. As such, I'll be following the Northern Ireland route, and we'll start with ensuring suitable and convenient means of access to a building for people from the boundary of from a car park provided on site. We will then consider aspects to assist people to be able to identify the building entrance and use it to enter the building easily, conveniently and without the risk of injury. We will cover the facilities of movement of people within the building, both within a story, horizontal circulation, and between stories, which is vertical circulation. We'll cover considerations to ensure people have access to the use of all facilities within the building, and this of course includes sanitary accommodation and other facilities. One last item is we'll lightly touch upon means of escape and lift provisions. Going back to our ground floor plan, I would like now to focus on the car parking area. From reviewing the various documents, It is clear that they all have different diagrams to show compliance, and in some cases different sizes. Nevertheless, all appreciate the need for suitable space, and that's around 1200, either side of the car parked vehicles. The design is to cater for either left or right-handed abilities. Further guidance for the UK and Southern Ireland could be found within the British Standard 8300. It is noticeable that in Hong Kong, the size of parking bays is slightly smaller. When referring to the United States of America, they tend to use dimensions in imperial measure. But when you translate it to metric, 11 foot equates to 3.35 meters for the width of a van. The axisile, which they've shown as 5 foot, is 1.52 meters. It's clear that in the United States they have a larger requirement for disabled parking spaces. Approved Document M also offers guidance for those who have to use ticket machines, and setting down points are clearly identified close to the principal entrance, as can be seen from a slide taken at the CABE headquarters. When parking is offered, Approved Document M states that at least one should be designated to accommodate a disabled bay. It is interesting to know that some of the other countries require more than one parking bay. Both Hong Kong and United States of America offer a sliding scale, and the number of bays depends on the number of cars. As mentioned previously, the principal entrance into the building should be clearly identified from where a person may park their car or from the boundary of the site, to ensure that people entering the building do so through the right door. Signage is therefore important, and it should be clear and large. In the photo that you see, the slide on the left has the word reception, but it's not as large as the sign on the right, which is very clear. The route to the car park or from the boundary of the sites for those who didn't journey by car should be level with a firm hard standing that is slip resistant. Consideration should be given to ensure that there is no standing water which could freeze or create discomfort by people getting their hands wet. The route should also be well lit with appropriate lighting when daylight begins to fade. The clear width then needs to be 1.2 within Approved Document M, the Scottish Technical Handbook, and the Northern Ireland Technical Booklet R. There is also mention of 1.8 where wheelchairs are likely to pass others. In Hong Kong, the requirement is 1.50, and in the United States, they're looking for 915 mil with a turning circle of just over 1.2. Another point that needs to be considered is the use of tactile surfaces where necessary. Consideration should also be given to ensure that the clear width is free from obstructions like stairs and doors opening across the route without barrier protection. In addition, any protection and opening from a building, you should be mindful of the position of landscaping, planters, seat cause an issue. There is some English guidance, which is itself, and so within the Department of Transport ability. This document can be downloaded from the website, and it clearly shows the dimensions that we need relating to the abilities of the person who's using them. I found guidance within the Hong Kong legislation. In this guidance, it shows that level access routes accommodate the widest range of abilities and should be provided, but there is a ramp is required when consideration should be given. For the purpose of Scottish and Irish regulations, a gradient of 1 in 50 or less is considered to be level. The more gradual the slope of the ramp, i.e. the less steep it is, the more easily people can use it without assistance. Therefore, slopes with a ratio of 1 in 20, 5%, to 1 in 15, 6.7% is preferred. It can take much energy to get up a ramp with steep gradients, which also makes speed control difficult when going down. The diagram from Hong Kong, I believe, is one of the best I've seen in understanding the gradient requirement and the need for gradients. 1 in 20 or steeper is considered to be a ramp. Scotland, Hong Kong and the USA states not more than 1 in 12. Approved document M states that where a ramp is provided, suitable stepped access should also be offered. The design of the ramp should also include handrails on both sides as well as an edge protection. There is plenty of guidance with regards to entrance doors from the width required to the provision of tactile services within the Hong Kong guidance. There is also a difference in the required width which some countries allow. Nevertheless, the doors that lead to the principal entrance of a building should be clearly identified and easy to operate manually. Consideration should be given to those who may have limited physical dexterity, and as such, doors should be powered operated under manual or automatic control. There are guidance on the force required to open a door, and this is generally 30 newtons from a closed position to the first 30 degrees and 22.5 newtons for the remainder of the swing. This is the same for the guidance in Hong Kong, whereas in America, the guidance only relates to 22.2 newtons. When providing a powered operated door, it is important to consider the location of the control panel which operates the door, since you need to ensure adequate time to operate the device and then travel to and through the doors. Ideally, this should be within 1.4 meters away from the door. All guidance documents which I've seen have clearly stated that disabled access via revolving doors should be discouraged. Within the United States of America, their guidance shows the provisions of an auxiliary door, which is something other guidance documents also encourage. Sometimes it's not always possible to have a level entry into a principal entrance, but good, clear alternative entrance for disabled people is considered acceptable, so long as when they arrive at that entrance, which they've been routed to, the reception area is clearly marked. In some cases, it is possible for disabled people to seek assistance to enable them to enter the building. Clearly, this offer needs to be fully managed, and appropriate trained staff should be made available with appropriate equipment or the ability to direct people to a suitable alternative entrance. Given the opportunity, it is possible to offer a suitable external lift which could overcome all of the obstructions for level entry. Within the various documents, there is guidance on the provision of the size of entrance lobbies and doors. The requirement for a 300 mm leading edge is to enable disabled people to open the door. This can be seen clearly within the United States document, which offers graphical guidance on what is suitable for a door entry. Just to help you out, 48 inches is 1.21 meters, which is slightly less than the UK building regulations of 1.570 mils plus DP1 plus DP2. DP1 and DP2 being the two doors either side of a lobby. Door handles are also important due to people's dexterity and ability to operate due to either loss of digits on their hands or the hand itself. The American guidance below shows different types of door handles that should be used, which relies on fist, palm and forearm operations. Sometimes in commercial buildings, there's a provision to provide shower facilities. When you are providing shower facilities for cycle use, consideration should be given to ensure that those with a disability also have the ability to have use of a shower facility. Not all guidance requires a shower facility to have sanitary accommodation. But if not, then a suitable sanitary accommodation shouldn't be too far away. When looking at such sanitary accommodation and facilities, you need to consider the provisions for emergency alarm, reset buttons, as well as flashing beacons and emergency lighting. The Republic of Ireland, in their guidance, bases their provisions on a turn and circle of 1800 wheelchair. They also have a provision for 1500 wheelchair. The space provision will be adequate for many wheelchairs. However, some powered wheelchairs and scooters may require a large turning circles. Within the Republic of Ireland, buildings with a net floor area greater than 200 meters squared requires the 1800 turning circle. Buildings with less than 200 meters squared will require a turning circle of 1500. In the Republic of Ireland, they also show guidance where a shower is incorporated within the sanitary accommodation. The Irish guidance offers details which is very much different to that within the UK guidance. The picture that we show now is where there is a difference between the legislation. And you can see on the diagram on the right, diagram 24, in the UK legislation, they show the seat, the shower seat and the pan in opposite directions. In Hong Kong, at least one accessible WC cubicle on a floor or in that part of the floor designed for access by a person with disability. The total number of WCs on a floor is 20. Then you should at least provide 2 WCs for disabled people. Within their own guidance, accessible WC cubicles shall be no less than 1500 by 1750 in area, and a clear movable space within the cubicle shall be no less than 1500. Scotland, the requirements are found within the environmental technical standards. For their technical standards, accessible WCs should be no more than 45 metres away, but you're allowed to use a lift to travel no more than 1 storey. That requirement also relates to England and Wales. For Northern Ireland, there is a sanitary accommodation for visitors, customers or staff. At least 1 unit of unisex wheelchair accessible sanitary accommodation should be provided. When looking at a bank of sanitary accommodation, at least 1 of those units, and that's a bank of 4, should have an ambulant disabled facility provided. Within the common area of the toilet facilities, the common lobby, you'd need to have flashing beacons, emergency lighting. On the picture that you see, I've made a note about the provision for a refuge point. Within the disabled refuge point, there should be a means of communicating with others. This tends to follow within the fire safety requirements. There's guidance both in Northern Ireland and within England and Wales, which refers to the provisions for ambulant disabled toilets. And as mentioned, in the British Standard 6465, the statement there is that where you have more than 4 toilets, at least 1 of them should be an ambulant disabled toilet. Looking at the United States of America, on their guidance, wheelchair accessible compartments should be at least 1525 by 1420 deep. And there's diagrammatical guidance as to what that looks like and how that would actually operate. One of the factors as to why we tend to ask for our in the UK legislations, why we ask for the washhand basin to be close to the pan is to enable a person from the pan to actually undertake to use the washing facilities without contaminating their wheelchair and moving across. And so it's the ease of the use. The picture on the left brings up the item about contrasting colours. And it's an item that will be covered later, but it is important that we do have contrasting colours and that we do ensure that the facilities are suitable. There are a number of things wrong with the picture on the right. Likewise, there are a number of things wrong with these pictures. If you can find out what the answers are, put them on a postcard and send them to CABE. Moving on to horizontal circulation. Clearly, the horizontal routes should be kept clear and there should be an adequate width. At least 1.2 clear width should be provided with at least 1.8 to enable wheelchairs to pass. There is plenty of guidance within the various documents in the various countries, but in essence, it can be summed up as a clear width should be provided, they should be free from obstructions, they should be level and have slip-resistant flooring, they should have good contrasting colours between the walls and the floors, and we're looking at a 30-point difference. There should be good lighting with sufficient lux and also good acoustics. Where you have doors on the circulation routes, these doors should have vision panels and no door should open directly onto a corridor, creating a potential hazard. Moving on to the vertical circulations, in particular stairs and lifts, I've summed up the guidance from the various countries that I've referred to. And it's interesting to see that two have a minimum rise of 100 mil, and most accept 12 rises, but are happy to increase to within 16 or 18 with different goings. England is the only country that's actually split its stair provisions into utility, which refers to the use for escape, access for maintenance, and general, which refers to users of the building on a day-to-day basis. But in essence, they've got the same sort of rising going that's needed. Stairs themselves should have good contrasting nosings to the rise and goings. The rise should be designed so it doesn't cause a hazard for those who use a walking aid or a stick, or those who may have a brace on their legs. In addition, spiral and open rise stairs are discouraged due to the impractical nature of their design and for those with disabilities. Coming back to stairs, we also need handrails on either side, and the height of those handrails on the pitch line and on the balustrade is detailed in the guidance. Both Scotland and Hong Kong offer additional guidance on stairs within their documents. Handrails have various sizes, but essentially one is required either side of a stair or ramp condition. They are there to assist people using the staircase. Effective handrails are ergonomically designed so that they can be used by all people, especially those with an impairment to their arm or their hand. The handrail itself should be smooth and comfortable to use by people with arthritic hands and should not be too small in diameter. The idea is that a person should be able to grasp the handle. One of the requirements in UK legislation is that handrails themselves should extend 300 mil after the last step and should have the ends turned down such that they do not cause an injury. There is a lot of information around the provisions of lifts, from the design to size and the control functions. Each country has their own guidance, but some of the common features are the height of the control panel, mainly no higher than 1200 mil, and a good sized car. In Hong Kong, the requirement is 1.2 by 1.1. The size of a car is 1.3 by 2.3. Sorry, 2.03. And in the UK, the requirement is 1.4 by 1.1. Referring to England, Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland, the requirement is roughly the same. In Ireland, the space in front of the lift is required to be 1.8 square and the maximum 0.2. Referring to facilities, There is plenty of guidance on the size and height of reception desks and that of T-points and workstations. Generally, they are required to have a good knee recess and a height of not more than 750 mm high. Within the UK legislation, there is a requirement for an induction loop system. In most cases, the UK legislation does allow for access statements, where the design proposal varies from guidance and relevant information extracted from the project access statement may assist in determining compliance. Unfortunately, such a statement provision does not exist within Hong Kong or the United States of America's guidance. That brings to the end my presentation on the accessibility of commercial buildings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michael. We've actually got some questions that have come in, if you're able to answer them. A lot of them obviously going quite back to early in the presentation, but there was a question regarding parking bay sizes and the fact that they're different. Do you think that the difference in sizes in Hong Kong and USA reflect the size of the vehicles in those countries?
It may. I think in America they tend to use vans, and there's a lot. When I was looking for the guidance, there was a lot of reference to vans, and I presume that they're the larger size of vehicles. Those in the UK will know that parking bays generally in supermarket car parks are rather limited in size. So yeah, potentially, yes. I think it is to do with the size of vehicles.
Great, thank you. The next question is, what is your view regarding the maximum force required to open the door and the need to fit self-closers in which in a fire situation may offer more resistance? I probably didn't make much sense there. What is your view regarding the maximum force required to open the doors and the need to fit self-closers, which in a fire situation may offer more resistance? There you go.
I do know that there are ironmongery manufacturers who produce aid-assisted door opening on situations, and yes, I understand that a door closer may create resistance, but you could overcome that with using the right ironmongery on the door based on the need of the disability. This is a situation where an access consultant should be engaged upon to give their guidance and expertise in this area.
Okay, there's a lot of questions coming in now, Michael. So, in your opinion, if we are looking at accessibility for all, including the elderly and those not disabled, is it right to restrict access to accessible sanitary accommodation to those with a radar key? I
don't really have a knowledge on that particular point. I do know that the use of a radar key tends to be in areas solely for disabled people. We are aware that within the UK, within the British Standard, there is a requirement for a changing room facility, which is rather large, but it's used for everyone. And I believe that as time goes on, commercial buildings where members of the public are likely to visit would require changing room facilities suitable to give access for all. Within the UK, it is all about an inclusive society, and I do believe that, yes, you should have access to disabled facilities if you have to change a child, or if you want to just have a rest because of your elderly. It shouldn't just be related to those in a wheelchair.
Okay, next question is, how does the use of steel and stainless steel handrailing, often used in and around buildings, comply?
It's all about where they've used it. When I've come across the situation about cold to touch, and I've raised a question, I've been told that, well, if the area itself is heated, then potentially the handrail wouldn't be so much cold to touch. I think it's more of an issue externally, and therefore using the right material is appropriate. And again, I come back to the point, an access consultant would be the ideal person to raise these items and bring it to the design team meeting.
Great, thank you. Please, can you give your opinion on what floor areas you would expect to see a lift installed to accommodate the first floor? He's thinking. Still thinking. Your lift is
depending on which legislation you're looking for. All parts of the building should be accessible. So if you have a building that isn't accessible, then you need to ask the question, how can you make it accessible? What facilities are offered on the upper floor that cannot be offered on the lower floor? Because if you have a situation where there are different facilities, then you would be discriminating against people from travelling up. So theoretically, you could argue that there is no limit on the size. It should be ensuring that what's on the ground floor is provided. Sorry, the facilities on the upper floor is also provided on the ground floor. Otherwise, you'd need to look at an access statement as to what would you need to do to overcome that situation. But ultimately, we shouldn't be designing buildings that limit people's movement.
Okay, great. Thank you, Michael. Can you provide some more detail on the communications required in disabled refuge spaces in stairwells?
Yes, the requirement is in the British Standard. It's in BS 5839 Part 6. That refers to the emergency voice communication. It talks about its location, and it's a panel. It's a two-way panel between the person in the disabled refuge and the Firepoint control center. Within it, there's what you also require is an emergency light in that area as well. But yeah, the guidance is in the British Standard.
Excellent. And also on a similar communications note, should braille and other tactile signage be considered?
Yes.
Great. Stuart's asked, one of the more difficult sections to meet compliance with when undertaking conversions. Advice, please.
Go to an access consultant.
Okay. That covers all the questions that I can see in at the moment. If anybody else has got any further questions, then please do pop them through literally within the next couple of moments. But I'll just take this opportunity to thank Michael for providing this morning's webinar, for travelling to HQ and stepping up to the plate. So, and I think he's given a truly international perspective this morning, because we are aware that, as Michael said early on, that we have got a lot of people attending today who are viewing this all around the world, which is excellent. It's really great to know that our international members and colleagues are joining us for our sessions. Our next webinar is on the 13th of December, where we're going to look at the natural environment and how that can affect construction and projects and development. So we'll have another expert in, and we'll be looking at that. So please do sign up and join us. And then what we're also doing is now putting together the programme for the next sort of 9 months, kind of towards next summer. So again, any questions, any subject areas that you'd like to see covered, please do let us know. If you know anybody who's an expert, or if you're obviously indeed an expert and would like to present to our members, or to the wider audience, again, do get in touch, because it would be really lovely to hear from you. When this webinar closes, there'll be a very quick survey at the end, if you could fill that in, just again for some feedback. And you will also get an email very shortly just saying that your attendance today can account for 1 hour CPD. So members pop into our website, log that CPD, just using the email as confirmation. Slight confession, we do normally upload these to YouTube. However, this morning I didn't press record until a couple of minutes in, so we have lost the very beginning if you're looking to share it with colleagues. But to be honest, it's only my introduction, so it's not anything too important that you've lost. So again, there's no further questions. So again, huge thanks to Michael for joining us. And where do we email requests to? If you want to email anything over to info@cbuildy.com, I'll be picking them up from there. So again, thank you very much for your time this morning. Thank you for Michael's time, and we will hopefully see you online again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.